All right. All right. We are live. Andrew, my friend, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, buddy. And yourself?
Good. Good, man. Yeah, we're excited to be back on this platform, going live on multiple broadcasts. We got this going on 4 channels on X, and then we got it going live on YouTube. So,
I worked out all the kinks, all the
yeah,
audio, no issues.
yeah, yeah.
We should
Super.
clarify that it wasn't me last time, it was you, but
No, that's true. Yeah. So, yeah, we tried to run Spaces and this platform at the same time, and it caused a little audio confusion. But yeah, so we're here again. We kind of want to kick this off, and we're excited to have Parker back. We're going to have him come up in a second. We're going to talk a lot about the associations, about the council nominations, who's applying, and a ton of other stuff that we want to cover today. So look forward to that. And we're going to bring Parker up here. We got a few things we want to discuss before we kind of dive into the details of what's been happening with the association, and we'll get going. So, Parker, are you around? There he is.
Hey, everybody.
Parker, there you go, man. I just introduced you. We put a nice graphic on screen so everybody know who you are. But please feel free to jump in and let everybody know if they're new here or new to Telcoin or new to the association, what we're going to talk about today. So yeah, please take the helm here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Parker, Parker Spann. I work at Telcoin Holdings PTE. We basically have 3 different business units that we focus on. The first one is the Telcoin mobile application, blockchain tech in your pocket, store, send, exchange, digital assets, send money smarter using your mobile phone, and self-custodial digital asset wallet. The second area that we're focused on is Telcoin Bank. Pending regulatory approval, aims to be the first regulated bank issuer of US dollars on blockchains in the world. And then third, and this is within scope for what we're talking about today, is a Telcoin platform and association, or the Telcoin platform ecosystem generally, which is comprised of a variety of factors, both ecological, so things, goods, and services, and then social, so people and ownership and governance. And what we're going to cover today at a basic level is the Telcoin ecosystem. We're going to cover the Telcoin platform, which is the technological processes that are involved in generating benefits, the products that it generates, the actors that are involved in producing and maintaining and governing the system, i.e. all of us, and then the governance system that sets the rules for actors to interact with the system and allocates provides for improvements to the platform, sets rules for who can interact with the system, et cetera. And we'll start off just by, very zoomed out, high level vision stuff here. So basically, the Telcoin platform aims to be the blockchain network standard for mobile network operators in the broader telecommunications industry. And the reason for that is that basically MNOs have mobile network operators. They're in every country in the world. They are distributed across the world geographically. They have some of the, they have unparalleled data center capacity. They have the last mile in terms of connectivity to users via their phones, and arguably greater technical capacity to know their customers and provide services that mitigate and prevent financial fraud than banks. So these factors make mobile network operators ideal for integrating and then globally scaling blockchain technology rapidly to the world. The existing financial system is fragmented. It lacks the universally accepted standard, infrastructure standard in terms of blockchains. There's thousands of them, thousands and thousands of tokens, and there isn't really one that has grabbed the market for consumer and business applications on these networks. And so we created a system that we think will solve that problem at scale and sustain for generations to come. The Telcoin platform is composed of 3 overlapping blockchain networks that each produce a complementary service that collectively outputs the platform's primary product. So at the base layer, we have Telcoin Network, which is a proof of stake, EVM compatible blockchain network secured exclusively by GSMA mobile network operators who use a GSM technology. So that's the highest level of GSMA membership that exists, and the right to secure the network is bestowed upon these mobile network operators. At the middle layer, we have Telex, which has been gone from a pilot program in 2020 on Uniswap V2 and Balancer V1 on Ethereum to now 26 markets across a variety of DeFi protocols on Polygon. This layer enables goods and services generally. The first being exchange between assets in a decentralized way that involves no central operator. Users can earn fees from trades that run through these markets. They maintain ownership of their assets at all times, and generally these markets at scale could serve the utility of any number of use cases as directed by the Telex Council, which we'll get into later. At the highest level, we have the Telcoin Application Network, which is the mobile application layer. So the vision is a network of GSMA-operated mobile applications that enable users to access and interact with the Telcoin platform securely from their mobile device. And so I'll go through the documents so that people understand how can I learn more about the Telcoin platform and the intricacies of it and Intel, et cetera. So I'll share my screen to go through the docs and just how people can go in and learn more. So you start off, you go to documentation overview and click on platform. And so the platform is, as I said, 3 blockchain networks that each produce a complementary input to the platform's primary output, which is mobile access to decentralized goods and services at scale. And so basically, yeah, we have these 3 different infrastructure layers, and then we also have the Tel Treasury and the network of Tel infrastructure that is across the platform that enables users to produce the system across layers and to harvest Tel. So Telcoin Network, if you go into this section, click on platform, go into Telcoin Network, it's broken down as 2 parts of this ecology. There's on one side, there's the resource system that is involved in producing benefits. In this case, blockchains produce ownership on the internet. They serve as administrative technology for securing ownership over digital goods and decentralized services. So they enable you to own things on the internet independent of some central operator. If you think about the way that all general services on the internet at scale today operate, you effectively go to a centralized corporation who then, let's say as an example, it's a close corollary would be a centralized exchange. You send your money to the exchange. They enable you to trade using their internal databases. They match orders for you, custody your assets, et cetera. Blockchains enable you to do all of those functions without relying on a central party. And so Telcoin Network serves both as this base layer security engine that secures people's ownership, enables them to send value peer-to-peer, enables them to interact with a variety of goods and services that can be created in these on-chain programs called smart contracts. So if you go into Telcoin Network system, you can really learn a lot about the attributes and characteristics of it. And we've done this format throughout each of these infrastructure layers, the Telcoin Network layer, to the Telex layer, and the Telcoin application layer, where you have basically the system, and you have a set of attributes that describe the system, and you have the products and the characteristics of those products. So Telcoin, if you want to really go in and dive deep and learn about these various different infrastructure networks that encompass the Telcoin platform, I recommend going into the platform docs, reviewing each of these attributes. So if you want to, as an example, learn about the infrastructure that's on Telcoin Network, you can go in and have both a high level overview of exactly what that means. So it includes the system, the blockchain production facilities, and it also includes the production extraction facilities, as well as the governance infrastructure. So yeah, there's these high level, first tier variables, second ones that include the system itself, and then third tier and even fourth tier variables that get in and really describe what is this thing and how does it work. It then gets into what are the products that this thing generates. So, and then what are the attributes of those products? So blocks are effectively these goods that are produced by blockchains that people can pay to have their transaction included in and secured to the blockchain, so that they can transmit their property over the internet, interact with any number of goods and services, and secure their ownership. So if you go through this area, you'll learn a lot about blocks. You'll learn a lot about the Telcoin network, the various tel levels that are harvested by miners there, and the consumer products that are available. Yeah, so Blockspace enables peer-to-peer transfers. The EVM itself enables the development of on-chain programs, which you can use to create any digital good or service that exists in the digital realm and then have it operate without some middleman. It enables self-custody, so people can own their things on the internet without others. And it has an immutable ledger that's immutable record-keeping mechanism that enables people to verify their ownership and their full transaction history, et cetera. Telx is in a similar capacity, has these same attributes, and its sector is DeFi. It's the middle layer. It's effectively the supply of goods and services that are produced by tel users on the platform that can then be consumed by the higher levels of users. So mobile app users, you can think mobile app users trading on DeFi liquidity pools as being, a primary use case for Telx today. That could expand to any number of use cases and digital goods and services that the community over time determines are important. And then TAN at the application layer, network of mobile apps, learn all about the various different infrastructure components, how we can measure productivity, the interactions between the various systems, so between TAN, between Telx, and between Telcoin network. And then you can learn about the products, which at the highest level is an aggregation of the products that are generated from below. So it enables people to interact with blockchain services via Telcoin network. It enables users to interact with exchange products that are enabled by Telx, which is itself powered by Telcoin network. And so the Telcoin platform is this value chain. It's been architected with the realization that there are three layers to blockchain goods and services, and by tying them and incentivizing actors across those three layers to co-produce this system around the shared infrastructure and token, it enables them to produce the full set of blockchain services without having to involve, thousands of other, DeFi protocols and apps. It basically is a recognition that since blockchains are ownership technologies on the internet that can be programmed at scale, the reality is that if you have a blockchain and then you have these higher levels, you have a DeFi layer, such as in any other blockchain you see that has smart contracts and an application layer. Well, the Telcoin platform recognizes that these are core components that without them, without the demand for block space driven by goods and services that are enabled by something like Telx and an interface layer that connects consumers and corporations to those services, without those, the involvement, the inclusion of those layers as within the architecture, and the ability for actors across the value chain to harvest, tell, and to produce the system and earn fees and have a voice in governance. The system is set up to recognize that including those people, because you can program any ownership model, is at scale going to be important, and likely most people will veer towards this at the end of the day. We wanted to build something that had staying power. And at a very basic level, you can look at it like this. If I'm a application developer or a liquidity provider or a active user who markets the service to someone else, um, is my role important? And if so, why don't I have property rights on these other systems? And even further, if there's a system where I can participate as an app developer, a liquidity miner, or a staker, an active user who markets the service to connect with their networks. If I can, on one hand, let's say with Telcoin, I can have real ownership rights to, as I said, harvest Tel, produce the system, have a voice in governance. Won't I choose that one versus one where I'm paying block space, but I don't have a voice, but paying fees for block space, but I don't have a voice. I can't harvest the native token. I don't have the ability to, earn fees in a structured way. Our idea is simply that at scale, because you're going to program these ownership things, these ownership systems on the internet to have any number of ownership regimes, that the ones that include the entire value chain will ultimately win, because why choose one that doesn't give you ownership when there is an option available that does? And so that at a fundamental level is why the platform is architected with these three levels. Now, within the docs, so go in if you want to learn more about the technological systems that are involved in generating benefits. Go into the platform section. And if you want to learn about their products that are generated by each of those layers, also go there and scroll to these sections and really drive understanding about these systems that we're discussing today in terms of governance. And then there's also, of course, a Tel section, which includes the attributes and characteristics of Tel. Go in there, learn more about Tel and its utility to the various actors in the platform, why it, how many units there are, what the contract addresses are. That's obviously important. And so learn more by going there. So we have these 4 miners that are stationed across the platform. They're the primary actors that are involved in producing, maintaining, governing the Telcoin platform. And so we've empowered actors across these 3 layers through the governance system and its rules with ownership over the platform. It's instead of like a corporation, what we're talking more about is something that's similar to like a fishing association and a large fishing pond that is hard to exclude users from and generates a benefit that it subtracts from the supply upon consumption. So the miners, high level, we have validators on Telcoin network who are GSMA MNOs who stake Tel for proof of stake, secure, produce, verify blocks to Telcoin network, earn Tel gas fees and issuance each time they secure a block. They are one of 4 miner groups that are that have governance rights to vote as a group, both over the governance system, so to change the rules for the governance system itself, which we refer to as the constitutional layer. And they have the ability to select representatives or council members to represent their interests on these minor councils who make decisions about how much Tel should be allocated and who should be able to harvest it, et cetera. And we'll get into those in a little bit. But at a high level, we have validators who secure the blockchain, liquidity miners who provide liquidity and produce liquid markets for users. We have application developers who create mobile apps that enable users to interact with the platform. And we have stakers who connect with their existing network of users to establish the Telcoin platform as infrastructure for settling payments, for interacting with any number of unlimited Web3 goods and services that could be created by the platform itself and offered to customers. So each of these actors has their own set of eligibility and authorization rules for who can participate. They each produce the system in some capacity and earn fees based off of their individual labor. They harvest Tel issuance based off of rules that are set by governance and self-execute on the blockchain in smart contracts, and they all participate in governance. So it's a system of self-governance. You have these, instead of let's say a group of constituents that all use a public park, and then that public park is governed top down by some government officials. Instead, the people who use the park, or the fishermen and the association, govern the rules themselves. And it's a pluralistic democracy in the sense that you have each of these 4 different subcategories of actors who have rights, duties, and opportunities to produce, earn, and govern the system. And so, unlike, let's say, the U.S., where you have basically geographically distinct governance authority based off where you're located, in the Telcoin platform governance system, we have functionally distinct user groups who can represent their unique interests based off of their relationship with Tel and the platform. So collectively, all 4 of these minor groups share complete power, control, and duties towards the full range of governance tasks, and they exercise these rights through a variety of different organizations that we're going to jump into now. So miners can alter the Telcoin platform governance system at the highest level of governance, called the constitutional layer. They can select other miners to represent their interests on miner councils. They can participate as council members on miner councils in choices that set the rules for interacting with the platform and with each other, and with each other in social processes within the association. And they can, as a part of these minor councils, direct, authorize, finance, coordinate the production, administration, general implementation of the goods and services that they determine in their processes, using other units. So unlike the TAO, which is an administrative unit that carries out the will of the association at the direction of the minor councils, the minor councils themselves actually plan, finance, and set and revise the rules, which then can be implemented by third parties or the TAO. So the minor groups, each of them, stakers, developers, liquidity miners, and validators, based off of their TEL staked and production processes within their group, have power to elect representatives, have power to participate as council members and be elected, which I recommend everyone get in the game and put forward your nomination application and start the process off. And then they have the right as individual groups to change the duties and specialization of their own council members. The minor assembly is the ultimate decision-making unit over Telcoin platform governance. The minor assembly is all 4 minor groups together submitting a proposal and then approving it. They all, as a group, they each need to approve an identical proposal with 80% approval, 20% quorum, in order to change the rules for how we operate within Telcoin platform governance. So if you wanted to remove the platform council, the minor assembly, composed of all 4 minor groups, would need to approve that same identical TGIP proposal.
Parker, quick question on that, on the assembly. How
Please.
many people are a part of that?
Everyone. So if you are
the full 28 council members will all be part of the same assembly?
So the minor assembly is not the minor councils. So the minor assembly is all 4 minor groups. So you have the minor groups, right, who are the stakers, developers, liquidity miners, and validators, who operating as collective units on their own, right?
Yep.
So stakers elect stakers to represent their
Pods,
interests, right? They each they're each empowered with equal control over the system. So if you want to change the governance system rules, you need all 4 of those minor groups to submit a proposal that's identical to their snapshot and then approve it with 80% approval and 20% of.
Okay, so there's not like an assembly council. There's nobody appointed to it. It's just the group working collectively together.
It's the ultimate DAO to the association. And you can think about the other ones as sort of like sub-DAOs. It's the ultimate decision-making unit with power and control, and it is encompassed by each of the 4 minor groups. So the reason for that is that if you wanted to vote, if let's say you just made it so that 3 out of the 4 minor groups could submit a proposal that says, let's say they wanted to get rid of stakers. So developers, liquidity miners, and validators form a coalition, and they say, these staker guys, I don't like them very much. Let's get rid of them. Let's take away the user's right to earn fees, to harvest TEL issuance, and to have a voice in governance. Well, the stakers, unless they agree with that, should have the right to protect their interests.
For sure.
So the only rule that can make sense when you're talking at the constitutional level, which is the level in which the terms and conditions of governance are set, the only rule for that doesn't devolve into tyranny is an exclusion of active participants is unanimity. So all 4 groups need to approve that if one of the groups need to get, let's say, voted off the island, or you want to get rid of the Treasury Council or the Platform Council. So you have these rights that are protected by individuals and groups themselves who are participating in the system, so that there isn't some hostile takeover that removes an important set of actors, while still enabling those actors to say, well, you know what, maybe we shouldn't do the whole staker thing. Let's relinquish that, right? So then in that case, if all the stakers, or 80% of them, agreed with revoking their own rights, then they could do that. Is the probability high? I don't think so, but that's why it's protected. So then you have the minor groups at the collective choice level, or the council level. So the level where the rules for how you interact with the platform and with each other in social processes are set. So stakers, developers, liquidity miners, and validators, based off of their TEL staked within their group. So let's say me and you are both stakers, and I have 10 TEL staked, and you've got 20 TEL staked, and so we both get to vote for council members council members to represent our interests, and you would be voting as a staker for staker representatives on your snapshot based off of your 20 TEL stakes. So you'd have 20 TEL voting power, and I'd have 10.
Yep.
So does that make sense?
Yep.
Great. Yeah. So each of these groups, stakers, developers, liquidity miners, and validators, their voting power within their group is based off of their proportionate share of TEL stake.
And essentially, sorry to interrupt again, but like essentially stakers, validators, and developers are all kind of around the same, where it's the amount of TEL that they have staked into the ecosystem is essentially their voting power. Whereas TELX is a little bit different, where it's based off of the value of the liquidity pool token in terms of Telcoin.
Right.
Okay.
It's based off of the total TEL value of your liquidity share that's staked versus other liquidity miners, and you're exactly right. It's different in that way.
Okay.
And an important note is that while the validators are, while Telcoin Network is going live, while the validators are achieving a quorum of 10, during that time period, the TAO is responsible for voting on behalf of validators.
So who right now is a part of like the developers?
So right now, the first developer is Telcoin Holdings.
Yeah.
And then the eligible actors are basically all of the GSMA members. So I think there's like 4 tiers, if I'm not mistaken, of GSMA members that encompass the entire telecommunications industry.
Okay.
And so today, any number of those GSMA members could launch a Telcoin mobile application. That's basically the standards for that are described on the platform section and the application developers section. And so they can create a Telcoin mobile application that connects with TELX, connects with Telcoin Network, and they harvest TEL issuance based off of A, the referral fees paid to their users, plus B, the total fees paid, exchange fees paid through TELX markets by their users, and C, the total fees paid by their users to access Telcoin Network block space.
Win-win-win.
Yeah.
So actively right now, though, in terms of developers, Telcoin essentially is the only one active right now.
Today, yes.
Okay. But like, is that to say that a GSMA member who, whether it's an entity or an individual, has some level of Telcoin staked on the app? Like, does that still include them in the developers for voting?
If when a new application developer joins the ecosystem and says, "Hey, I want to participate," and then they begin participating, there's a registration process that involves basically submitting a forum proposal that includes
Okay.
your
Yeah, that
business
goes to the
information.
compliance council.
Yeah, submitting a proposal to the forum saying, "Hey, I'm XYZ GSMA member. I want to participate as an application developer. Here's my business information. Here's our GSMA membership info. Here's our mobile app." And then they've submitted that forum proposal, the TAO then submits the developer's info, including the address they'll use to stake and everything they've shared prior to the compliance council, who then approves them, and they can then stake TEL from their authorized wallet address and participate in harvesting issuance and voting in governance.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, so I highly recommend people go through each of these sections to really grasp the various different types of actors that are across the Telcoin platform, who can participate in what. And I think it's also important to note that the minor councils have the right to determine the, let's say, required attributes in the registration process for who can harvest TEL in their domain. So in the case of application developers and stakers, the TAN Council has the right to say, okay, how about we open up the who can participate as a developer based off of the outcomes that have happened before, i.e., let's say that there isn't much traction with developers from the GSMA that end up participating. Well, in that case, we have this ability to experiment with the rules for who can participate and how that process goes in. And so you could theoretically open it up to whoever the TAN Council believes should be a developer in order to drive application development on the Telcoin platform.
Yeah, makes sense.
And
Yeah,
so
Parker, before you get going again, I just want to play a little hype man here, guys. If for those that are listening and that'll listen afterwards, I mean, I hope you're ingesting what Parker's describing here. I mean, it really is a user-owned platform with your voice being as loud as you want it to be, right? So I would encourage you to go through all this documentation that he's explaining and get involved if that's what you choose to do. I mean, it's open and out there. It's for yours to participate in as much as you want. And so yeah, I just wanted to hype that up. I mean, it's really a good chance to get involved at a very, very high level and help facilitate what happens in the future. So
yeah, it truly is like a true proof of work, ecosystem. It's like
Correct.
stakers,
Yeah.
you've got to stake and you've got to push your referral code to get people in. For Telex, you've got to put your money where your mouth is with, putting your money there, right?
And let's be honest, so it also incentivizes people to like, well, I want more of my voice being heard, so I'm going to go buy more TEL, so I have more voting power. It's a win-win all the way around, guys. I mean, it's really compelling, and I can't wait to see all this start rolling out and all the activities to begin.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I appreciate the kind words, and really looking forward to seeing this whole association self-organize, and you all being some of the first applicants are really leading the way.
Yeah, I'm super stoked, man. And just looking through what the TAN Council, which is the one I applied for, has their hands around, and what you were just describing on being able to, hey, listen, things are a little light here. Let's go try to find more sources for developers to come on board and get things going even quicker. So I'm super excited to get involved.
Great. Yeah, so the council member selection rules, the candidate with the most votes wins. If or candidates, in the case of, let's say, the platform council, where there's multiple reps from each of the groups, and the quorum has to be 20%. So that means 20% of, let's say, the total TEL stake by stakers needs to vote in the election for it to be approved. In the case that, let's say, a a minor group fails to reach a quorum or to elect candidates, then the TAO comes in and substitutes on their behalf and votes on their behalf until a candidate is selected. And so that reduces the cost of decision making substantially. If you had a system where where we just wouldn't be able to reach a quorum, you just wouldn't be able to have the minor councils fully elected and therefore couldn't make decisions, then we'd have a problem. And so the TAO is this special purpose unit that can facilitate governance in that way. So the minor councils, so on each of the minor councils, we've set it up such that the system itself is meant to empower each of the minor groups with equal power and control over and within the Telcoin platform governance system. And so on the global councils, which include the Platform Council and the Treasury Council, you'll see a balanced representation from each of the minor groups on each of these councils. So each group on the Platform Council elects 2 representatives to represent their interests and 1 to the Treasury Council. And then there's a special purpose unit called the Compliance Council, which is responsible for authorizing users. I'll get into that in a little bit. General compliance related to proposals and conflict resolution. And then the TAN Council and the Telex Council, which are local councils. These councils govern where you have these global councils that the Platform and Treasury Council that govern this Telcoin platform and the Tel Treasury and token contract governance infrastructure. These global councils that have authority over the platform as one indivisible system. You also have local councils, which on these councils, such as the TAN Council, which governs the Telcoin application network, you have local actors who have more say on how on decisions. So they have stakers and developers who are both local actors on Telcoin application network. They each have 2 representatives who can voice their interests that are local to what they do, while still ensuring that liquidity miners and validators have a voice on every council. And then on the Telex Council, you have 3 candidates or 3 reps from liquidity miners and 1 from everyone else. So everyone has a voice on everything, and they exercise that voice when it's related to the platform and social day-to-day rules or the operational rules. They have a voice in every decision that's made. And when it's local to them, they have the outsized voice that ensures, as an example, with the TAN Council, with a 5 out of 6 approval rate required, that means that at least 1 staker or at least 1 developer must approve any changes made there, developer rep or staker rep, in order for it to be implemented.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Parker, before we move on, we had a quick question, and it's to the wallets, and I know we've discussed this before, but I want to make sure the listeners are clear. So the question is, I guess I need to vote with my MetaMask wallet staked on TelX and not my Tel app wallet.
That'd be like specific for like liquidity mining, I think.
Yep.
Like obviously, I feel like I can answer the question, but Parker, if you want, go ahead.
Can you ask it again? So I guess I see it here. I guess I need to vote with my MetaMask wallet staked on TelX and not my Tel app. Okay. So if you have a Telcoin mobile app and you're a staker, you need to delegate your voting power to an external wallet. And using that external wallet, you can then interact with Snapshot to vote and make proposals. And by delegating to that external wallet, you're giving that wallet your political power. So your staked Tel. And so then you can just vote from that wallet, right? You could theoretically delegate it to any number of wallets. It could be your Telex wallet. It could be a wallet that you just created for the purpose of voting. It doesn't require any on-chain action, so you don't need gas or anything to make those decisions. And so you could easily vote from both your Telex app, your Telex wallet, and have your stake weight delegated there, and then vote from that wallet on the different proposals. So
the distinction I think is just between like, okay, if you're a staker, you're voting on stakers. applications are, right? And
Based
if you're
based off of
a
your
provider, you're providing the ability to vote on people who are applying as a liquidity miner representative.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tim, if you have any problems creating that path, just reach out to Andrew or I, and we can walk you through it. It's really, really simple.
Yeah, I think there's a video on it too, which we can
Yep.
share
Yep,
afterwards.
that's right.
If you need to.
That's great. Thanks, guys. All right. So yeah, the minor councils, these are the decision-making units that can impact day-to-day interactions with the platform and with each other. So they're self-organized by the community. We elect them. There's numerous different decision-making units with global, local, and special purpose in the case of the Compliance Council. And they're democratic. They participate in decisions collectively that require a certain approval rate to be approved. And then they are representatives generally of the constituent minor groups in their decision making. So they're representing the interests and preferences of the people who elect them in decisions regulating the platform and internal use patterns with TEL. So their duties are allocating TEL, determining who can harvest it, and planning, financing, infrastructure, construction, maintenance, providing information, and a variety of other collective goods that are specific to each of the minor councils. And so they have both authority and then they have duties. So the platform council, as I said, has eight 8 members balanced across all 4 minor groups. They use 2 different processes. One is a process that regulates global or platform-wide communication, information, compliance, legal and organizational rules. So the TIP process is used to regulate effectively social policies at the global level over the platform. It requires 6 out of 8 of the members to approve it with a quorum of 100%. And the platform and treasury councils form a unicameral policymaking unit when they try and change global rules related to the actual system itself. So that includes the TEL Treasury, which is the primary storage facility for the source from which all TEL issuance throughout the platform is harvested. And they can alter, let's say, the TEL token contract, make a new token. They can, once Telcoin network is live with 10 active validators, they can alter Telcoin network system rules and harvesting rules. They can alter the Telcoin Association constitution, and then communications and governance infrastructure. So this type of proposal is, super important, and so require these areas, right? The TEL token, the TEL treasury, making changes to those. They're super important, and they're important to everyone equally across each of the minor groups. And so having a balanced representation is a necessity, and then having both the platform council approve it by a supermajority or a 6 out of 8 approval rate, and then also afterwards have the Treasury Council approve it by unanimous consent. This ensures that any changes made to the system as a whole and its most critical components are done with the approval and consent of all of the important actors or stakeholders involved. And so then you have the TAN Council, which 5 out of 6 is the approval rate. They can alter the rules for who may harvest how much TEL issuance from Telcoin application network. They can plan and finance the construction of infrastructure to improve those systems, the systems that exist. They are responsible for providing information and communicating it to their constituents in the community, and so they have authority over TAN. The TELX Council is the same as the TAN Council in the sense that it has local authority over TEL harvesting rules within TELX. It has the ability to plan and finance endeavors to improve the TELX ecosystem, maintain infrastructure, such as the, let's say, TELX website, such as the TELX staking contracts, and the harvesting rules within those. And then the Compliance Council is a special purpose unit that has veto authority over all minor council proposals. So if you go in and make a proposal that is legally not going to work, or is not compliant in the sense that it breaches Telcoin Association values, they can veto that proposal before it is affirmed. They also have, as I said, compliance authority to make compliance rules. They use the TIP process to do that. And then they use their own process called the CCIP process to create conflict resolution mechanisms within the platform and to administer conflicts and to determine how, let's say, validators or developers or council members should be verified and authorized to participate in positions. So each of them has their own governance channel. It's all built on Snapshot. The reason for that, Snapshot is an off-chain voting mechanism that enables on-chain actions to happen if put into the proposal properly and if configured in the way that we have structured it. And the rationale for having an off-chain voting mechanism is pretty simple. The idea of having on-chain voting mechanisms, in our view, is fundamentally incongruent with the idea, with the basic reality of what governance is, which is governance is a social construct. It doesn't matter if you communicate it through a internet protocol or you do it in a boardroom with a bunch of people. When groups of people come together and they make decisions, that's a social construct, not a technological reality. And so the idea of creating a fully on-chain governance, the outcome of a proposal is immutable, it can't be changed, and is basically taking this social construct and putting it into the ecological conditions that it's governing. So it'd be akin to a fishing association saying, let's go underwater in our scuba gear and figure out and then choose how we're going to allocate fish to be fished by individuals. And so I find it to be a silly idea that we should, because we're on blockchains, be limited by and really take dangerous steps in the process that we've seen from tons of outcomes. That idea just seems really silly to have fully on-chain governance when the reality is, no matter which way you slice it, there's people talking. So yeah, I would recommend going into similar to how the Telcoin platform is, the documentation there is architected. If you go into each of these different actors, you can learn about the attributes of them from each of them, and they all have the same variables that are used to describe them. So yeah, if you want to learn more about validators, application developers, or stakers, I recommend going in to each of those sections and just reading and trying to get a grasp of what each of these positions means, what the duties are, what the benefits are for participating, who the actors are and are going to be, and et cetera. So that's my overview of the ecosystem besides governance. I feel like we pretty much went through governance there, but I'll do a quick one that just explains the governance system at a high level. So there's a variety of governance organizations throughout the platform. These are all constituted by the miner groups or the individual miners themselves. At a high level, that includes the Telcoin Association, which you can learn all about here, is basically the legal entity that we operate within as a community to make decisions pertaining to the platform. It also includes the TAO, which is this administrative and production unit, of which I'm the executive director. And the TAO, while the minor councils, they make decisions about the platform and what the rules are, and they provide in terms of planning and financing for shared endeavors. They don't actually go out and, let's say, construct the thing that they want to create, or administer the legal the legal, proceedings going on in any number of cases that could happen on behalf of an association, which happens with all associations. There's always legal things that need to be facilitated, administered. It coordinates and contracts with third parties to implement new systems at the direction of the minor councils, and it proposes the candidates that are submitted to the forum in elections, substitutes on behalf of different council members who either are revoked of their duties because they failed to vote 3 times according to the compliance council, or or if a community, one of the minor groups fails to achieve a quorum or to elect a candidate, the TAL will substitute on their behalf to reduce the cost of decision making and then vote to represent the interests of that constituent until they elect a candidate. It's also responsible for constructing Telcoin network. In terms of construction, the budget for financing the TAO is limited to Telcoin network. The rest of the, let's say you wanted to create a DeFi protocol on TelX, or you wanted to create some new type of system that doesn't exist already, that needs to be planned and financed by the minor councils. And then they can choose if they want to work with the TAO to do that piecemeal, or if they want to work with some other third-party contractor to implement that code. The TAO will contract and coordinate with those parties to then implement those systems in terms of financing as well. So it develops Telcoin network, takes on administrative tasks that are outside the scope of the minor councils, and then drives ecosystem development, most particularly with the GSMA. So I will be going most likely to the MWC conference in Barcelona, and I will be operating on behalf of the association, driving new validators to Telcoin network, informing the ecosystem of the GSMA about what this is, how they can become involved, what the opportunities are available. And so that's the function of the TAO. And so the TAO has, there's a variety of rationale behind the TAO and its authority. So it has the ability to propose on any of the minor council snapshots. This is to represent the interests of people who otherwise were not. This is to handle any potential emergency situations that come up. So it can submit proposals, and then the councils can approve them. And it submits proposals and votes on behalf of validators until they reach a quorum, as well as it proposes elections. So as you'll see, actually, Amir, who's the smart contract development director, he's responsible for creating all the telex contracts across the board, as well as the governance infrastructure. And he's the smart contract development director. And he just recently submitted his nomination application for one of the councils. And then Grant Key, who I think 10 minutes before this meeting submitted his nomination application to be considered for the Treasury Council. So he's the core head developer of Telcoin Network. Tim is the legal and compliance director, Tim Ahoda, who's the general counsel of our firm Telcoin. And then Rajesh, who you've all seen numerous times driving ecosystem development within the GSMA, is the ecosystem development director. Who would have known?
And Parker, these roles are, if I'm not mistaken, they're 18 months.
Yeah. So so basically we've constituted the TAO so that we can, as an example, implement the TGIP1 implementation plan before the minor councils are constituted to, enable proposals, et cetera. And so we've constituted the TAO, and then when I say we, I mean Telcoin Holdings.
Yep.
And then after 18 months, it'll effectively function as having 4 of the 4 others besides the executive director will be voted in a balanced representation by each of the minor groups. And then Telcoin Holdings will select the executive director.
Okay.
And those rules can change too. If the community decided that it wanted to get rid of the TAO, then it could do that. It could do that.
Or make it bigger.
Or make it bigger. They could do any number of things. And that's what this whole system empowers, is the community to make decisions about how things ought to be based off the vision that we collectively share. And so there's a number of different reasons for why the TAO exists, and I encourage people to go in and review it and learn more about it, as well as learn more about the rationale behind the association and why we chose this path instead of the traditional one that most see. So there's governance organizations that we just went through, including the association, the legal entity, the TAO, the admin unit, the assembly, which we covered earlier, which is the ultimate decision-making unit over platform governance, which is composed of all 4 minor groups, the individual minor groups themselves who vote to elect representatives, who can participate as representatives on councils and who can form an assembly to change any aspect of governance. And then we have the minor councils, who are all the different decision-making units who can change rules related to the platform and related to TEL issuance and basically a variety of different the variety of different components within their own jurisdictional domain. So there's, as I said, there's 5 of them. They cover global, special purpose, and then the local units that govern the rules for those subsystems. So I encourage people to go in and really learn about these various different organizations. And if you feel comfortable and this is something you want to get involved in, then submit your nomination application. So
Yeah, I got to say, Parker, real quick, the more and more time that Andrew and I spend talking about it and reading these documents and understanding it holistically, at first when it came out, it's a lot, right? We all agree that it's a lot to ingest, but once you get the understanding, and basically what Parker's doing here is breaking it down on a high level, but showing how the functionality and the interactions with each platform and councils actually are going to work. It's a really cool system, and you start to get you get a chance to digest it all and understand it, and it's not that complicated. So we're hoping that these types of interactions with you, Parker, help shed light on somebody that looks at this and like, oh, that's too much. I'd love to participate, but it looks like it's too much. I don't think I have time, or I don't fully understand it. So this is by far one of the better things that we're doing for the community to try to help shed light on what's going on here. So
yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah. I'm going to continue to provide this type of overview information style, and my plan is to, the past few weeks have been pretty crazy. The plan is to basically do this type of thing, except go into specificity for each aspect of the ecosystem. So if you think about the Telcoin ecosystem, it's the actors in the governance system, which are the social components, the platform, the products it produces, including TEL. And then we go in and create, apparently someone wanted me to do an audiobook, which, I love audiobooks. I was like, that's crazy. But,
pretty dope. Yeah.
it's like hearing your own voice. It's like, should I really be doing this?
You're the new Morgan Freeman. Come on.
In here talking about it. And yeah, so the plan is to continue to inform the community on this stuff, so that they have an understanding. And yeah, so each of the minor councils governs the operational rules. These are the rules that for interacting with the platform. They're the everyday rules, such as harvesting rules, eligibility and authorization rules, maintenance and construction rules, communication info, and conflict resolution. So these are your day-to-day rules. And as an example, the TAN Council regulates this, the Telex Council regulates the Telex harvesting rules, Platform and Treasury Council regulates the TEL Treasury distribution rules, the council member harvesting rules, TAO harvesting rules, et cetera. And so you have these, the theory that we applied to the governance structure is called polycentricity, and it's described briefly within TGIP1, the initiating governance proposal, which I recommend people review to understand the why and the what and how, and then where we go from here and everything at a high level. But yeah, you can go in and really get an understanding of, all right, what are the rules for each of these sections, and then who controls them. And so operating through the minor councils, the minor groups at scale or at the highest level make decisions about governance across the board and have full power, control, and duties. So yeah, it's a communal governance system in terms of it's a communal system for ownership rather than like a corporate private property one. And that's a bit of an overview about Telcoin platform governance. Now, I think we should go into the various different minor councils and figure out. So if you go to the top right of here, you can go into the Telcoin forum, and you can submit your nomination application to participate as a representative of any of the minor groups. I think that's an important distinction to make. You don't have to be a developer to represent developers' interests. Developers, you do need to be a minor, and you do need to be, and you do need to be verified KYC, AML. But to represent a developer, the developer simply needs to elect you, and you need to be a minor. And so that opens up the ability for more people to participate in more positions instead of pigeonholing everyone into just I'm a staker, so I can only represent stakers. The reality is no. If you're a staker and let's say developers think that you're a great fit and you're aligned with their values and your preferences align with theirs for how things ought to be, then there's no reason that you can't nominate yourself to that role. And so we're basically right now still in the auditing process and the implementation phases. And once the audit is done and we initiate the TEL issuance for miners to be able to harvest TEL from the system, produce it, and vote in governance, then a few weeks after that, the first election will happen. And at that point, governance will be decentralized fully to the Telcoin Association, which will be fully self-organized by the community and have power and control over the whole system.
So, Parker, when you say like the issuance starts, just so I'm understanding it correctly, that's specific to the Telcoin network?
So you know how stakers, liquidity miners, developers, and validators all harvest TEL based off the rules that are set. So that commences. So stakers will begin harvesting TEL issuance.
Okay, so let's take Telex as an example.
Yeah.
Not that I know anything about that. I don't focus on that at all. So right now, based on the pools, you have, like you said, 26 different markets, with different issuance per pool. That will essentially end. And then the new pools that were outlined, I think there were 6 of them, will essentially go into like production, so to speak. And like that's when they would start.
So after the audit is completed, we'll initiate these various different pools, create them, create the contract, create the Telex staking contracts, launch them. Those are currently what's being audited, right?
Yep.
So we'll launch the Telex staking contracts, and people will provide liquidity to those pools, harvest TEL at these rates. And after that's happened for a couple of weeks, then we'll have the first election. We want people actually, the miners need to be producing and harvesting TEL, participating in their role
for sure
to be able to elect people, right?
Okay, and these pools are going to be built specifically on the Telcoin network, or they're still Polygon?
Sure. So they'll start off on Polygon, and then once Telcoin network mainnet is live,
migrated,
proper capacity, everything, the proper DeFi protocols are in place. There's a bridge mechanism there with 10 authorized MNOs producing blocks. Then we'll transition everything over to Telcoin network. For now, it's on Polygon.
Okay, so everything will be on Polygon until mainnet's ready and the migration gets started, and then everything from there will transition from Polygon to the Telcoin network. Okay.
Exactly. And basically the issuance that, there's market incentives to move to Telcoin network for individuals, and then there's collective incentives to move to Telcoin network for any TEL user. So even without the rules, there's a rationale for why, let's say, a developer would say, well, I'm going to move everything over to Telcoin network. And that is that the basis for how much TEL they harvest is calculated by the total fees paid on Telcoin network by their mobile app to access block space versus other developers. So and then you have Telex migrates over. Then what's the purpose of using some other blockchain to develop apps when there's this other blockchain where, as an application developer, you can harvest issuance along with everybody else. So that's, you have both market incentives for the individual, and then you also have, so I would go into these sections if you want to learn about the various harvesting rules that are set. And that's also outlined in TGIP1, but this one goes through it more in detail.
Okay. And of those 6 pools, I think there's one, if not 2, that are currently created already. Essentially, the other ones will need to be created. Like if we take Repmatic as an example, like right now it's a 60-20-20 with USDC in there. Like we're essentially going to have to cease incentives from that pool and migrate liquidity from there to the new existing pool that's going to be a Tel Repmatic 80-20.
The Tel 60-20-20 pool will no longer have a staking contract that people can stake into and harvest Tel issuance from.
Telex. Yeah.
Of course, like
you'll still get swap fees and all that kind of stuff.
They need to remove their staked liquidity and everything, and create, and produce the let's say Matic Tel 80-20 pool instead of the one they're on in order to continue harvesting Tel issuance.
Yeah, so they'll have to migrate. If someone's in one of the pools that is not, of the 6, they're going to have to decide whether or not they want to stay in the pools that are there and keep getting the swap fees, or, do they want the issuance to move over to one of those 6 that are determined there. And obviously through Telex IP protocols, we can add more pools down the road, but this is the initial starting. Okay.
That's why we started off like
basic,
super basic, reduced size, a reduced number of markets down much lower, so that from there the community can construct Telex however it deems fit, and incentivize however the Telex Council thinks is the best usage of that Tel to drive
adoption or liquidity.
Diverse, liquid exchange markets, or any number of other markets that the Telex Council determines will be useful and earn revenue for individuals.
Yeah.
So you can go in, and the operational rules include the harvesting rules, and if you want to learn about what those are from day one, I recommend going in, clicking association rules, operational rules, and then reviewing each of these.
From the staker perspective, with them getting issuance, like I know we have obviously the stake and refer program now, you get up to 42% of those referral fees that come in when they swap on the app. But when we talk about like issuance like this, like are they going to get a certain amount of Tel allocated to them based on their staked amount within the app, or is it based off the user fees that are generated kind of on a block by block basis? So as an example, me, you, and Steve are all stakers, whatever. We have different amount of referrals, which is fine. Steve, Canadian and co-host. But essentially, like if I have generated 1,000 Tel within that block, Steve's done 5,000, you've done 2,000. We're going to get a proportionate amount of the Tel associated to stakers in that block in the ratio of the fees or the rates that we've been that have gone through.
I'll just walk through the formula for how stakers harvest Tel. I'm
just thinking because like that's probably the audience of who's going to be here. A lot of it is probably going to be stakers and liquidity miners. But
so there are 2 types of stakers. There's merchant stakers and retail stakers. Merchant stakers are corporations that are Telcoin mobile application users, and retail stakers are individuals who are Telcoin mobile application users. And they each, stakers' role generally is to drive adoption of the Telcoin platform as infrastructure for settling payments and accessing Web3 blockchain-based services. So in incentivizing this actor, if you think about a traditional financial, platform, right? You have company builds an interface, they market the system, create a central limit order book, and they enable people to trade. So they match their orders in their database, and then they custody and keep track of the trades that have happened for each user. We've decentralized all of those primary functions to a set of involved actors across this value chain or across the Telcoin platform to fulfill each of those functions. But instead of as a company, as networks of individuals who compete with each other to earn fees and to harvest Tel, to drive what area of the platform in terms of productivity, their role is meant to. So in the case, as I said, of stakers, is to drive platform adoption. And so in order to do that, how do we measure adoption by some user who's connecting with new users on the app and is using the service themselves? Well, we have two things we can measure that based off of on-chain. One, how much has that user transacted and paid fees over X time period? So in this case, what's the total fees that the user has paid, and what is the total fees that their referred user base has paid throughout the week? So this happens each week. Stakers, so retail stakers will be live at the start. Merchant stakers will come afterwards from after implementing those systems within the app to enable corporations to sign up seamlessly. But retail stakers to start each week, there's 3.2 million Tel that they compete to harvest from, and it's based off of how much fees have they paid during the week and how much has their referred network paid during the week versus all other retail stakers. So, and then the most that you can harvest is based off of the total Tel you have staked versus you have basically a maximum cap or a scope rule that says, here's the maximum that a staker or a developer may harvest over a weekly period. And that is, they must have more Tel staked than they've earned over their lifetime, plus the amount that they'd earn during the week. So if I have 1 million Tel staked and over my lifetime I've earned 1.1 million, then I'm not eligible to earn issuance that week. And so that drives so what that's meant to do is it's meant to disincentivize mercenary service provision. So let's take XYZ influencer as an example. They go out and they share their referral code with their millions of YouTube followers, and then all they do is they just take that issuance and they sell it, and they just keep doing that and they sell it. And is that person really aligned with the network? And so Tel in this way serves as a production input to determine both what's the referral fee rate that you'll get from 15 to 42% based off of how much you have staked. And then it also determines your earning power in the sense that the most that you can earn is based off of how much Tel you have staked versus how much you've earned over your lifetime.
Interesting. I didn't know that back end of that. Yeah, because I had a happy medium in there with a million staked, but understanding that there's capped earnings,
Right.
definitely changing that. So.
And I think there's an argument to cap earnings even further, added another scope rule, which would be to say like you can't earn more than you've paid in fees and referral fees. But that's not how the rules are structured, and so.
No, I think it's genius.
Speaking of
to your point, if like someone puts in $1 million and then over a year and a half they earn that million Tel, it's like, well, okay, you want to earn more, stake more.
Speaking of staking,
Right.
my referral code's up on screen for anybody watching. They want to scan that QR code. You can go ahead and use my code to get going. So
is that one mine or yours?
That's mine. It is
You think
absolutely
he's gonna post yours?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I put it in here just to tease him, but I'm not going to
be a good friend though. He's like, I'm just hooking you up, Andrew.
The worst part is it was my idea.
It was his idea, but you snooze, you lose, man.
You paid for dinner the last time we met up, so
I did. Yeah.
By the way, are you in where are you, Steve? I saw that you were in Juarez. Did you say Juarez?
I was down in Juarez this week for work. Yeah, but I live in South Florida. But yeah, I had to venture over to Juarez for a few days for my biggest customers down there. So,
well, Glad that you're good.
Yeah, I made it back. We hire. I was explaining to Andrew. We hire an armed driver, believe it or not. So we had 3 of us from my team go down, and yeah, we get picked up in El Paso. They take us through the border, through immigration, drop us off at the plant, pick us up at the plant, and do the reverse roll on the way out. So
That's good. That's good.
yeah,
So I was
yeah.
going to have a few guys with machine guns bringing you to
It's,
work.
it's a wild experience, but yeah, it's part of my norm now because that's, like I said, one of my biggest customers is down there. So
That's very cool.
yeah.
Yeah, someone like unrelated was like reached out and they're like, or like related to me. It's like, hey, like one of your friends is going to Juarez. Like, so, like I'll ask him later. I'm sure he's got a word.
It's a quarterly thing now, so we got the process down to where we all know to take our watch or leave our watches at home, and I mean it's a different world down there, right? It's a cartel town, so
Is it?
yeah, it's pretty wild, but all safe and sound. We're back. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, now let's go through the council rules, provide a little overview. These are the rules that structure how decisions are made. That includes the rules for how council members are elected by minor groups and also how minor councils make decisions. So basically we have 2 different, we've kind of gone through this for the most part in terms of like the general voting and representation rules across each of the minor councils and the basis for power and the channel they use. So the election is an annual ceremony where all of the council members are elected, selected into their roles by the minor groups. So the entire set of council members goes up for election, and we as minor groups choose which ones we want to represent our interests on each of the councils. And so the TAO is responsible, at least for now, until the community determines otherwise, for taking all of the candidates who have submitted applications to the forum, which will go through who's there so far and walk through their apps. That'll be fun. And then proposing those candidates to each of the minor groups that they're representing or they're trying to represent. And then the minor groups vote based off their voting power, their tel-staked. And then as a result of that election, each of the council members is automatically transferred from the minor group's snapshot or their safe wallet that's connected to the snapshot, an NFT that confers them proposal and voting authority on the snapshot of the minor council where they've been elected, as well as a stream of tel issuance that distributes on a per block basis to their NFT. So it's sort of governance stipend. And so these NFTs confer voting and proposal authority. They're only transferable by either the minor groups in voting processes, which include elections and liquid delegations, which we'll go through momentarily. And then also by the TAO, who if let's say Andrew is on the TELX council and he breaches one of the rules, which is you need to vote on every proposal. If after 3 proposals, Andrew just misses it, the compliance council can say to the TAO, hey, please revoke their NFT and vote on their behalf because they failed to either, let's say, show up to 3 of the recurring meetings in a row, or they failed to vote on 3 proposals in a row. So they haven't been living up to their duties. And so these NFTs can only be transferred through those 2 mechanisms.
Sounds like Andrew. Yeah, I can see that.
You didn't show up for work again. So then there's so in order to keep these minor council members accountable and to ensure that council members are representing the interests of their minor groups, we've enabled this institution or process for how to remove and replace an existing council member outside of the election window. So except within that 7-day election window, any council member can be removed and replaced by their constituency at any time. And so, that keeps people accountable. It ensures that, we can continue on and make sure that, it makes sure that, the decisions will continue to be made, even if someone isn't fulfilling their duties, and they can be directly accountable to the people who they're voting on behalf of. So accountability and reducing decision-making costs is the reason for having these liquid delegation ceremonies. Do you have any questions about that?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, and then we've gone through the Mayor Council decision-making rules. So in terms of the rules and everything, I think we're good. How about we now, because I've been talking for so long, you guys share with the world your nomination applications and why you've chosen to run.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think holistically, it's everybody knows why we've chosen to run. I mean, we've been involved in some way, trying to be a voice of the community for Telcoin for some time. So I think it makes sense, especially the work that Andrew's done on the educational content for the Telex community and keeping APR data flowing into the community for, on a weekly basis. I know there was a break there, but he's back at it now. I mean, so I think just from a holistic standpoint, I mean, it just makes sense for us to stay as involved as we can to help facilitate Telcoin as a company and the community, right? And help wherever we can. That's my take anyway. So I don't want to speak for Andrew, but
Telcoin, the association.
Yeah, the association, right? Yep.
Yeah. For me, it's just like the alignment on what you guys have been doing from day one. The goals to make everybody a little bit more financially literate. Bringing the access everywhere and anywhere you can. We've talked about it on multiple spaces. Banks, taking an obscene amount of money from you guys, and why are we letting them do that when we can do it ourselves, right? But most of it comes from uneducated, not having the education, I should say, of knowing, how to take care of that, like yourself. Like we don't get taught, finance, taxes, or any like that kind of stuff through the school system, right? But what we're seeing now is we're building out an entire ecosystem, a new association where, we're taking that power back and giving it back to, the people. Right, the whole David and versus kind of Goliath thing, right? And I've always been big on trying to educate themselves on their financial responsibility, and don't worry about, or don't let somebody else worry and manage your money. Like understand it a little bit better so that you can put it to work for you in a way that you want it to, right? And for me, that's the biggest thing that I want to push forward, is just taking over that financial responsibility on an individual basis, because you've got one life and you can't rely on everybody else to do things for you. Again, at the end of the day, who's going to have your best interest at heart other than yourself, right? So for me, that's one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to continue to push this vision and everything else forward. Obviously, I've got a pretty good background with analytics and data and all that kind of stuff too, with all the stuff that I'm doing with Telex. So I don't know if you guys noticed too, but I changed my application from representing liquidity miners to developers, and that was specifically because I wanted to focus a little bit more on the data. So Parker, to your point, when you talk about diving into these docs and understanding kind of the roles and responsibilities, like everything is there, right? It shows you the Telex council, and there's one staker, one developer, 3 liquidity miners, 1 validator. Here's your roles, responsibilities, what your expectations are, and reading through the docs. The developer side of things for me was more on the data and analytics, which is a lot of what I do with like the Telex community stuff. So I thought it would be obviously a pretty smooth transition to, apply for that role. But Yeah. Overall, the reason that we continue to do what we're doing now is, we align with the overall vision of what Telcoin's trying to do. And for me, I would love to be a part of that to help continue that moving forward.
Yeah, and then diving into the details, I mean, so the TAN Council specifically and why I chose that path, right? So it's almost, and specifically the role that I hope to gain in that on the platform, but so I get to be involved in the techie, nerdy application stuff from a high level, and driving who's putting what onto the system. But I also, what I'd like to be is part of that educational and marketing content, pushing that stuff out to the community, or a professional take on the marketing aspects of what is coming to the ecosystem. So that's where they're like the best of both worlds for me lies, right? I get a little bit of that techie stuff, but I also get to do the salesy marketing stuff too. So
I think that's really great that you've embraced the nomination, like the specializations that are within each of those roles.
mm-hmm.
They, in a lot of ways, I mean, everything's an experiment, right? We're experimenting with blockchain systems and how they should be governed at a high level. And the nomination applications today and the specializations that are placed there's two things. The first one is those special duties or specializations can be altered by minor groups pertaining to their individual representatives via the TRIP process. The other part is that they're really a placeholder. I love that we're embracing them. However, I don't want people to feel like they can't participate in a particular role because its specialization is infrastructure and coordination or something.
Right.
That the organizations are like the one organism that's made up entirely of humans, right? And each of those councils has its duties that are bestowed upon it. And so by having a nomination and like a specialization to each of the council members, it ensures that there is a focus area for each of those actors to work on that covers the full range of governance tasks within their domain. But as I said again, I want people to understand that that's an experiment, and that if you don't have background in infrastructure development or production coordination or something, like don't think that you can't still participate in the role, because at the end of the day, it is the council's duty as a whole to fulfill all of the duties that are there. And those are really just to guide people about here's what you could be doing, and here's a guidepost for how you should participate. Don't feel like if you don't have a marketing background, you can't participate in the marketing role. That's not, necessary. So
yeah, and I would think early on in these councils and the development of these councils that it's going to be completely liquid, right? Things are going to be changing probably pretty rapidly at some pace to develop exactly what the current focus is and the long-term focus of each council needs to be, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of liquidity within those councils and roles and everything, especially this first go, right? The first year as this develops. So hopefully that can get through quickly and then everybody finds their place. But watching the growth of all these councils are going to be just as entertaining as the platform itself. So
yeah, for sure. It's going to be fun to solve shared problems in this type of format, and with real structures in place for how people should do that versus can you imagine if this whole thing was just governed by just every vote was done by every token holder, and
yeah.
It would be so bad, in my opinion. Humble.
I agree.
No, it just giving the voice to community members that choose to participate, and like I said earlier, just being able to help just mold the community focus or the association focus is huge to me, and I still, as much as we've talked about it over the last couple of months as this rolled out, I don't know if people are actually grasping the size and breadth of voice that they're going to have in this ecosystem. So these, like I said earlier, these things are so important, I think, to get that word out on what's happening here. So
Yeah, that's a great point. Do you guys want to share your you want to share your screens with your nomination apps and walk through them, or what? So
Sure.
people know exactly what you're running for and all
Steve,
that.
you want to go first since you were the first
Um,
initial person to
Do you
submit?
have the windows up? Can
You
you?
want me to? Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you could share it. Yeah.
Okay, it is up.
Let me share it.
Caustic.
All right. Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, I mean, most of it, I filled in what questions were asked of me from Parker's original post. So a lot of details. Andrew and I joked about the hardest person to talk about is yourself, right? So as we're filling this out, but when really getting down, I mean, everybody listening or watching probably knows my role on social media and Andrew's, of course, with Telfam chats and everything. But when we get down to the specializations is where I really think that my strengths will come into play, and that's education, marketing, the incentives on how everything's going to go work through the TAN councils, as well as what really excites me is having a voice in the interactions in between platforms. So the TAN Council, I'm sorry, with Telex and the banking services and what applications are going to be, built on and running, within the network. So. But I think the specializations between the communication, marketing, and education is where my strength lies. So that's kind of the role I'm hoping I can take in the council. Um, so I felt like I was a good fit, and as I mentioned earlier to Parker, me being able to kind of nerd out on the tech side. And see, what's being built out, what's coming, and the interactions between platforms, and then also hopefully being a voice to the community and representing the council and the association. I think I could do a good job at that, so that's why I kind of put my hat in the ring there.
yes, sir. Is there anything else that you wanted to?
No, man, I'm done.
highlight?
That's all I want to. That's all I want to toot my own horn. So,
Well, he did say that he wanted to make it a Tel DFX 50/50 pool.
that
You did.
I will be putting that proposal up as soon as I get a chance to. Yeah, I love 50/50.
I agree.
Parker. I think because of the way the market ebbs and flows, that a lot of altcoins kind of traject at the same time and within the same range. So trying to nix that impermanent loss, I did really well with Telbal early on. And I think that there's some other tokens like Tel DFX that you could really take advantage of that 50/50 as the market goes up and as the market comes down. So
If I were on the Telex Council and you proposed that we replace the Tel DFX USDC 40/40/20 with a 50/50, I would vote yes immediately.
perfect. I like the sound of that.
You're getting Steve excited.
I'm not going to be joining the Telex Council. In fact, I haven't decided which one I want to join.
So that was going to be one of my questions,
That
was
was
whether
the
or
hard
not the
question.
TAL members
Yeah.
can vote. But we
Yeah.
saw that obviously Amir and Grant have within the last 24 hours. And
Yeah.
I was going to try to lead into that question of where you think you're going, but it sounds like you don't know yet, or at least you don't want to share it yet.
I'm leaning towards Treasury Council. So the TAO, think about the TAO as a separate, entity, right? And that entity, whereas the minor councils are provisioning units, they plan, finance, provide information, set rules. The TAO is a production unit, and the separation between those two things is incredibly important, because if the people who, in terms of their, the legal and organizational separation, those units, right, those need to be separated. The reason for that is that, if the TAO were to be, let's say that we required every person who was a minor council to, or every person in order to participate, they needed to be like a developer, right? And they needed to be able to implement the things that they wanted personally, rather than determine what as a group, the way things should be, and then figure it out from there. We want people to make decisions about the way things ought to be and then implement them with a separate unit. We don't want what could have happened if you just required everyone to be this, technologist or whatever. If you require all the minor councils to both make the policies and improvements and implement them, it severely would restrict everyone, and it would likely devolve into a technocracy where only the technologically superior are able to make choices, and that's not really what we're doing here. So that's a critical difference. And so the TAO has in it the ability, individual members have the ability to participate in decisions in other organizations related to what should be done. And those are separate duties from the actual implementation of them. So really what those guys are doing is they're taking on additional burden, additional responsibilities to contribute, and then also helping to actually implement things on the back end. So that the TAO is capable of it. TAO individuals are capable of running for different roles as they deem fit, as are any Telcoin Holdings employees or employees of any ecosystem member. They can all participate in the elections, and then the TAO, of course, as an entity, can then substitute on behalf of people when there isn't a candidate, and that ensures that the show always goes on.
Just a question I'm thinking about now. So, like, what would be the roles and responsibilities of Telcoin Holdings once everything is passed on now? Because, like, you've got the TAO, you've got the association. Like, if somebody who is currently working at Telcoin Holdings doesn't apply, like, what's their roles and responsibilities moving forward?
So, Telcoin Holdings is deconcentrated its authority, control, ownership from effectively platform leader to one of any unlimited number of participants in the position of application developer. So we're the first application developer within the association as affirmed by TGIP1. One of the outcomes was that we were authorized into that position by the community. And so that's and that's a lot of what this has to do with is this idea of incentives compatibility. It's the ability, which effectively means the ability for individuals to focus on what their primary area of business is and their specialty, while still ensuring they have a voice and opportunity within the broader context of everyone else. So you have compatible incentives across the board. Users who are active on a mobile app, referring new users to connect with them over a payment network, i.e. the platform. That fits well with what a user needs, what a user is capable of doing, right? That's what anyone who's ever used any app that they use to connect payments with, they're generally saying, hey, use this app, let's do that, right? And that is super compatible with their day-to-day life and just induces an opportunity, which is the same thing with Telcoin Holdings. Whereas we had to cover the full range of governance tasks, which, as you can tell, with the system would be just really difficult and not compelling to the other members, right? If we just had dictatorial control over the whole platform and all of the obligations and duties that come along with that control, we wouldn't be able to experiment as a community with what works. We wouldn't be able to continue to develop it. We wouldn't have the interests of all of the entire value chain being represented within decisions that are being made. It would just be us doing that. And so we've really decentralized our role into a position that is suitable to us, right? We develop mobile apps, we develop banking products. That's on blockchains. That is that enables us to focus on our critical role in our business while still contributing to the community. That makes
Hey,
sense.
let's not let Andrew off the hook here. You still got to go through.
I'm going. I was just.
Yeah, I saw. No, don't worry, Steve. I saw that too.
Okay.
He asked me another question as a
I
diversion.
could keep ask. I'll ask questions all day. I don't. Let's dive in. I feel like I talked more about mine already, but like I said, I did initially apply to the liquidity miners, but based on the roles and responsibilities. But Parker, that's a good indication to bring up too, is that those roles and responsibilities aren't specific. It's more, as a whole, Telex Council needs to do this, this, and this, and this. And it's not to say that if data is specific to, the developers, which it is right now, it's not to say that 100% would rely on that person, right? So
Yeah, I battled with the idea of not creating the councils without any special duties and just
I think it's a good idea, just so that
was
at least it shows a scope of what is required and what's necessary, right? Like you could have that broad scope, but then at least if you could break it down, then at least like again, for me, I like data, I like doing analytics.
yeah.
Obviously, you could tell from my spreadsheets that I put out for the last 2 years that obviously I'm not a coder. Otherwise, I would have automated it a while ago, right?
Parker, you should see it when we put the community notes that we're going to use for our spaces. Mine's an absolute mess, and we use a shared document. I come back in, and Andrew has completely rewrote it, not content, but structured it in a way that makes sense. And I'm like, oh, whatever,
Yeah.
okay. So,
I got problems. Leave me alone, Steve.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I need to do a full introduction. I think everybody, knows who we are from everything that we do. But in terms of specialization, I just wanted to highlight for me like all the things that we've done in the past and the last couple of years. So obviously, Telex community account, all the educational analytical stuff that we've done there. Keep in mind that wasn't just me. There are 2 other people that were part of that, which again we still keep in touch. But there's some stuff that we would need to do to that website to kind of get it back up to speed. But that's a later problem. So again, I've obviously been involved, with Telex and providing liquidity since we begun. Co-host, obviously, of these chats with Steve that we've been doing, almost 1.5 years, 2 years now, Steve.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So obviously posting a lot on Twitter, Telegram, Discord about everything that's going on, specifically as it relates to Telex, a lot of educational stuff, word of mouth with family. We did the initiative too, which is kind of what led to that Telex community thing with the Dune Analytics. Parker, I think you remember that too, to get that up and running with all the statistics and whatnot for Telex. And then even with the generalized incentives pools, help create those initially and get those seeded to get up there. So, yeah. So bought into the ICO initially back in the day. And again, a lot of what I said before is just really following along with, the vision, the mission statement of, what Telcoin is trying to do as a whole. And the excitement of trying to educate, more of the individual person to take financial responsibility and understand, their own finances, what they're looking to get, all that kind of stuff, right? Because, like I said, the only person that's going to have, you at heart 100% of the time is you.
Yeah, it's not the government, is it?
It's definitely not the government. It's definitely not the banks. So, yeah, again, unique skills. We talk about, all the stuff with the data and analytics, which is why after reviewing all the roles responsibility, I decided to switch it out. Changes. So for me, again, a lot of what I do is try to do it around educational content and how the platform works, how everybody can benefit from it. This could be done through short little videos, learn and earn, something like that. Also be great to have the ability to provide to Telex through the Telcoin app. I think that, you probably get a lot more exposure, a lot more liquidity through something like that. And then just increase the amount of analytics that we see on Telex too. So like for me, like I want to see too, because like you could see how liquidity like TVL goes up and down, but that could be a fluctuation of just token assets, going up and down. But for me, what I would really like to see is liquidity pool tokens, because that's a constant, right? So you could see if more people are adding liquidity to a specific pool, or are they withdrawing liquidity from that pool, right? So it's based on liquidity pool tokens. So if we have 100 liquidity pool tokens and the TVL is 1 million, one of the assets, doubles. TVL's now at 1.5, but nobody's added liquidity,
Right.
right? So at least for me, I think a good statistic is to see, like, okay, is that pool growing with the amount of people that are adding liquidity to it, as opposed to just growing via prices?
Very interesting. One thing I would point out, by the way, is like the ability to provide liquidity in like the Telcoin app or whatever. Like there's a set of application infrastructure standards that are required from developers in order to participate, that the TAN Council can determine in order for people to be able to harvest TEL issuance on TAN, right? They can determine who can harvest how much TEL issuance based on what formula in terms of developers. That doesn't include like saying, hey, app developer number one, or, whatever, you must do this to your app now. That's not really within scope unless it's we wouldn't be able to say, I want to make Telcoin Holdings introduce that into the app. That's not really within scope, right? What's in scope is what infrastructure must be provided by an app developer, or what information must be provided by them in order for them to continue harvesting issuance, versus let's make a decision to update the app and then have those people do what we said. It's a little different than that. I just wanted to make that distinction clear. So we have a solid understanding across the board. It's not like, hey, we made a proposal to do this, so now you guys have to do that to your app right now or whatever. It's a little out of scope unless you're talking about the basic infrastructure and information.
Okay, no, it's good to know. Did you want to go through some of the others?
Who else we got? We got Tim.
Tim's in there.
We've
got No Piss in Me. I don't know if I'm saying that properly or not. Amir, Grant, and Boo Classic also jumped in.
Boo Classic is a long time Telfam. Yeah.
And I've had some people reaching out to me on Telegram too, asking about the process. So I would expect a couple more to come within the next week or so too. I would say just make a note, because I think I saw a comment from Tim in the chat, that when you put a wallet, it could be a wallet that you just created. It doesn't have to be associated to your staking app. It doesn't have to be associated to your Telex account. This is something that you're sharing publicly. So keep in mind when you guys are applying for these positions, when you put a wallet address in, safest bet is just to create a new one, assign it as, the Telex Council wallet, or whatever you're applying for, a council wallet. And then at least from that perspective, you don't have to worry about anybody knowing about your, day-to-day ongoing transactions and looking at everything that you're doing, because you're essentially doxing yourself if you're putting, your wallet out there.
Right. Privacy means sharing what you want with whom you want. And it's important that people recognize that blockchains are public systems that have, record-keeping mechanisms that can tie addresses to ownership and transaction history, et cetera. And when you post your address to be nominated, you're sharing that with the world, right? You're sharing all the actions that have ever happened in that address with the world for them to see. And so we don't, as Andrew said, it's recommended that you use, unless you're totally comfortable with that stuff, which a lot of people are, I think. I'm not. It's not my thing, but unless you're comfortable with sharing that with the world, then just have a new blank wallet address. Also, when you're submitting your address, don't use your Telcoin mobile app address, as that's not compatible with Snapshot right now. And then also when you earn your issuance and everything, you basically have to claim it. It goes through the safe layer stream. So you want to, basically what I'm saying is, Don't put your Telcoin mobile application address in there, both for privacy and functionality reasons on your nomination app. And then remember that whatever you share on there is public. And the process is for proving that you're a minor, because you have to be a minor and you have to be, of course, in a compliant jurisdiction, which is a prerequisite for being a minor too. But those things happen separately off chain after the election. And if you don't prove your identity and that you're a minor within 30 days to the Compliance Council, then you'll have your NFT revoked. But you do have that time period to complete it, which is a pretty
easy process. Yeah.
Pretty easy process. So yeah, that's great, man. I love to see that you guys have your apps in, and I think we've covered this. I'd love to know if you think there are any areas that we can drive further education on right now in this call while you have me. And
I was just going to ask in terms of commitments, because I've seen through the applications, there seems to be a pretty consensus on time that you need to afford to be able to, do one of these positions. And from what I'm seeing, it's kind of in that like 10 hours a week range. Is there an expectation from you guys, the team, on what is required, or a rough idea on expectations? Like I can imagine to Steve's point too, that he brought up, like,
yeah, so 10 hours a week is not accurate. That's way above what the expectation is there. I mean, 10 hours a week, if you want to contribute that amount of time, like, and you enjoy it, and that's great. But
for clarification, Parker, I think what Andrew is saying, like per application, where the question is how much time do you have to dedicate? The consensus seems to be coming back between that 10 and 20 hour. Especially at first. Right?
The rules dictate two things. One, that you need to vote on all the proposals. And if you fail to vote on like 3 proposals, then the Compliance Council can have your authority revoked. And then the other, so you need to vote, and then there's a recurring meeting that happens. It's scheduled by each council every 2 weeks. I think it might be more. I don't know if every 2 weeks is right, or maybe it should be every month, but that's what we put together as a starting point for the Platform Council to determine where the Platform Council has authority over communication, global communication rules, and then those councils operate within those rules, which they can then set for themselves, such as let's do it next Tuesday, right? But then the Platform Council can say, instead of having to do a recurring meeting every 2 weeks, you could do it every month or every 2 months, whatever. So, but the 2 requirements are that you vote on every proposal at risk of having your authority revoked, and that you go to every recurring council meeting with your group to discuss proposals within your domain with proposal authors, to share information about system conditions and outcomes, and to generally field questions and provide material to the community overall about the status of your area. So if people are dedicating 10 hours a week to this, that's awesome. I think that's probably more than would be expected. That's
okay. No, fair enough.
Leave you on a cliffhanger there.
No, that's okay. I want to give everybody an understanding of like what is expected. And again, I think at the beginning it'll probably be a little bit more burdensome. Maybe that's not the right word to use, but more labor intensive, I guess, just to get things up and running. And then once you get into a regular cadence, like you said, if it's once a month, once every 2 months, or as things come up, you'll figure it out. But when you were talking there too, you mentioned something like, so is it possible that when a proposal comes in, that you can invite that person to one of the council meetings to like pitch it and like?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So there's a Discord. I created the Telcoin Association Discord, planning to get that out like to the community sometime soon.
Oh, good. Okay.
So become absolutely necessary and practical in terms of management once the code audit's done and the people are participating as minors. At that point, I think that's when we'll release the Discord. But the Discord has basically a bunch of voice channels for councils to do that are specifically meant for recurring council meetings.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, and if you make a proposal, come in and contest it, and share the why and what, and go through everything with the council and figure out if it's a good fit for for everyone involved. And then from there, they'll vote on it. And so if you submit a forum proposal, I think the base, it could just be a no-brainer and someone just, drops a great proposal and then doesn't come and tell everyone why it's great. Like that could happen. But I think as an example, if I were to submit a proposal on the forum for the community to review, then I'm going to show up to that recurring council meeting and I'm going to defend it. And I'm going to tell everyone it's great. And, that probably gets more people to want to, that probably would drive maybe a council member to submit the proposal and then have everyone vote on it, or it wouldn't. Who knows? But so that mechanism is in place for sure. And it's right now we're in that sort of during the implementation phase where we're going from towards the decentralization and self-organization of the association. Then there's a little bit of like an awkward time period where we're working towards making the thing happen so that we can operate within it, and so that it's still sort of ongoing. And I'll be able to we'll get that thing live once it makes a little bit more sense. I think for now it's good to have the primary focus be on learning by reviewing the site and trying to understand what the whole thing is about, why we're doing it, and what it is and how you can participate, seek what roles are interesting to you, and then understand what that means. And then having the forum in play so that people can pretty much just uniformly just focus on getting these councils elected, so that then once again we can operate within that system with the councils elected and the association constituted and everything. So I think, would you agree maybe that's probably the right approach for this moment where we're just working on getting council members nominated and everything?
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, there's that kind of period where it's kind of in between where, things are getting started. But like once you, get the train on the track, like there's no stopping it.
And I'm glad we brought up the time commitment, because from feedback that I think Andrew and I both have received was like, man, I really love to participate, but I don't know if I have the amount of time that it's going to take to do it, or I would love to do it, but I don't want to dedicate if I can't dedicate enough time to do it right. And so I think what we'll do out of this is just take that little 5-minute dialogue and do a snip of this chat and make sure we get that out to the public and say, hey, listen, it's not a 20-hour-a-week job that is on top of your 9 to 5 and on top of your kids and on top of your time with your wife. So it's manageable if you want to participate. So we'll make sure we get the word out.
Right. I mean, at a fundamental level, as a council member, you don't even need to make a proposal, right?
Yeah.
But you do have to vote, and you do need to show up to those meetings, because otherwise, like, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah. So I just want to make sure we get that point out from this call, this podcast, because it's definitely loud feedback that I've heard multiple times. So
yeah, I want to make sure we answer this question. Someone asked about the voting mechanism. Tim is sober, so he has 10 hours to spare, he says. Congratulations, Tim.
Yeah,
we're happy for you on that. You'd like to know about the voting. Ty Akimi would like to know about the voting mechanism. Ty, if you go go to telcoin.org and then go to documentation, click on Telcoin platform, and then go to governance infrastructure, you'll have an understanding about the mechanism. But at a high level, it uses Snapshot with some plugins called the Zodiac module. And basically people can vote as minor groups based off their TEL staked within their group to elect council members using these snapshots. And then the minor councils themselves are a bunch of council members who are elected by those minor groups who receive an NFT upon election and then have proposal and voting authority on snapshot voting modules. It's Snapshot. Go to snapshot.org. It's this voting system, off-chain voting mechanism for blockchains that can take into account, say, how much TEL someone has staked to account for their voting power without requiring on-chain immutable mechanisms to happen as a result. So yeah, snapshot is the general mechanism, and then there's a bunch of different processes and organizations that have their own ways for making decisions. It's more about, say, 3 positions, 1 applicants. Do you have 3 votes or just 1?
I'm not sure I understand
Yeah,
that
I'm not
either, but like I think the way that we got to focus it is more around like you have one wallet that's staked on the app. You're voting all of that power with that one vote. Like you can't split up. Like if I'm a staker and I delegate my app wallet to a MetaMask wallet, I can't split that into like 3 votes for 3 candidates.
Correct.
It's vote for one wallet.
So yeah, on each election, you'll be able to vote for candidates. So the stakers will have a platform council election, a treasury council election, compliance council, telex council, and TAN council. And each of the minor groups has the same. They each have 5 elections, and then you vote for the applicants that have been submitted to the forum that are on the snapshot. And so you do get to vote for multiple different council members on different councils. But yeah, in terms of
but like essentially, like if we're looking at it, like I'm a staker on the app, and I have those 5 councils that I can vote on as a staker. I basically have 5 votes that I can put forward with my voting power. Like I can't split up like for the Telex council. I guess maybe that's not the best example, but say as a liquidity provider, and I'm voting on the 3 representatives of the Telex council. I can't split my vote and say like, okay, I want to put 50% towards Steve, 25% towards Parker, 25% towards Andrew. I can't do that. It's essentially 100% one wallet, one vote.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So I guess if people want to like delegate that way, like the only way you could really do that is if you're a liquidity miner and you have multiple wallets.
Yeah, well, when you have
you can do it that way, but
the platform council one and the ones where you have multiple candidates, you can select for multiple candidates, but the ones where you don't, you cannot.
Can you explain that first part a little bit more? How can you vote for multiple people on the same council?
Just a multiple vote. So like that each minor group is going to vote to elect multiple people into each council, and then the ones with say on the platform council, the ones with the top 2 votes are elected.
Yeah, but individually you can't vote for 2 people.
Right.
Yeah, okay, that's where I think the disconnect was. Okay. Yeah. So as an individual, you have 1 vote based on your voting power with the delegated wallet from your Tel app as a staker.
Yeah. Unless based off of the outcomes of the election, we determine that as a community that there should be a multiple choice function for voting, which we could do that, right? For now, that's how it's run.
Parker, remind me, was there a fixed date for the actual council vote yet?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that would be tough. Fixed dates are always impossible in this business, man.
Is there any comments you could provide on the status of the audit? I know Twitter account posted kind of a timeline between 0 and 21 days, but
yeah, it's going well. We basically, they sent over a preliminary list of issues that were found by auditors, which is always to be expected, and then Amir focused on that, and then they sent over like the full comprehensive list. I think it was like last Friday, and so focusing on updating in line with auditors' comments, and yeah, we'll keep you posted on the outcome of that. Of course, as we all know, security and blockchains is super important.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, but assuming everything goes well, based on that 21-day kind of what you've given us, that timeline, it's possible that things could be good by like the 6th or 7th ish. That's
let's just wait until like.
Nice try, Andrew.
I'm excited, Parker.
We could respond to the audit, provide new, then they could provide new issues, right?
True.
So putting like next week on it, that just seems really irresponsible. I'm not saying you're irresponsible. I'm just saying, like, even putting the timeline in the first place on the
No,
TGIP
no, I
implementation plan felt like the wrong thing to do because it just takes time, and
Yeah.
you can estimate all you want. So I think let's just stay tuned. Let's focus on getting everything out secure and, focus on education and driving new applicants to the election and go from there.
Parker, real quick before we let you go, the Telcoin flag was your initiative, wasn't it?
So my friend Corbin gave me that Telcoin flag, and
Okay.
then I was like, we should hoist it up somewhere. And then somewhere or another, it turned into where let's send it around the world and have everybody sign it.
Yeah.
So Andrew, how is that going over there?
So far, so good.
Told you.
You can see.
I mean,
It's like, yeah, it's going right there for the rest of eternity.
he didn't damage it, so that's a good thing.
Nice.
It's still there. Steve's gonna get it next.
I'm getting it
just a matter
next.
of when he gets it. You still got to pay me for it, but
Yeah, well, bidding's open for after my ownership of it. So yeah,
yeah. And the goal is to try to get
commoditizing it.
We're commoditizing, yes, sir. We're here to get paid. So yeah,
it's tough. I mean, everything's got to become a financial instrument with you guys.
Steve said that, not me.
You can't trade it.
Hey,
I was joking.
We're doing all this for free. We can at least ask for some kickbacks when we can, right?
Right. Of course. So what's the auction? What are you going to price the?
Oh no, I'm only kidding. I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's
No, I think we got to hoist it up in Lugano somewhere.
I think so too.
Yeah, I already have some requests coming in through DMs. Cody being one of them, since he's now moved away from Florida. It would have been awesome if we could have, both had a video of both of us signing it at the same time. That would have been awesome. But I'll do what I can here in South Florida or wherever I go in travels. Maybe I'll try to get a couple of Telfam members out and get some autographs on it, and then we can ship it somewhere else, man. I'm super excited to hold it for a while.
So it's going from Andrew to you next.
Correct. Yeah. So Toronto to South Florida.
Is it like dirty at all? Has it been?
No, it's actually in really good shape.
That's sucking. It is like
you can see the fold marks on it still. Like when I got it from Liberty, like it was in great shape. Like
Ty just said send it to New Zealand. I don't know if it's been to New Zealand yet, right? That's an option. Yeah.
You still got a full back on it.
So you still got the whole backside to go too. So on Monday, I'm going to be meeting up with some people, hopefully by the CN Tower around lunch, to see if we can get some people signed. I got some friends and some family that are going to join me. But if anybody from the community wants to pop in, shoot me a DM and let me know. Come and sign it.
There you go.
Yeah, I think my basic idea behind it was more of like a trust and reciprocity exercise for the community at the high level. I mean, experiment just to see, like, if we send this flag to Andrew, is he going to burn it? Going to send it to Steve and like continue this, reciprocity between the community, that we can trust each other with, things that are important to us, and then send it on. And everyone's passed it with flying colors, just like TGIP1 was unanimously approved, which was absolutely, awesome.
That was a fun night. Although afterwards, Andrew and I stayed up a little too late chatting and got a little deep into the bottles that we had on our desks.
Yeah, I think that's something that's worth remarking on. Is just like, I've never seen a proposal of any kind with that number of voters get anywhere remotely near unanimous.
Yeah.
Have you? I looked at a lot of DeFi proposals, a lot of crypto proposals, a lot of DAOs, and there's always that one guy. He's like, yeah, it's going to be 99.8. How about that? And then you can read it. That's what so you expect that. Like, that's your basic scenario, is that, like, I mean, ideally, the super majority of people are like, let's do this thing. I love it. And then there's some minority that's like, nah, I'm not. Like, no, dog, I'm out. And there wasn't anyone, which is, I just think, something that's speaks to the community's alignment, as well as that we've got something that's meaningful here.
I think I mean, even leading up to TG to the vote, Andrew and I mean, we did our best to try to get that broke down what was going on with the association and what that vote meant and the Constitution and everything else. So I hope some of that helped people understand at a high level of what you guys, the concept of what you were pushing through, and that we could make it, make it as great as we want it. That's the what you guys are handing to the community basically is let's make it as great as we can. So
yeah, it's very much the beginning. It's very much
yeah, it's a long process, and I don't think people understand how long it takes to build this type of infrastructure, and even from a legal perspective, which we've never even really touched on. I know you went through it at a high level, but yeah, it's amazing to me that all of this is being constructed whilst with the network being built, the application up and running, the Telex platform, features. I mean, so there's so many moving parts, and this just adds to it. So holistically, that ecosystem is just growing and getting more friendly, I think, to the user than ever expected, to be honest. So
yeah, it takes time, especially you're decentralizing like decision-making authority over this complex system to this global community of people. And we're gonna all like collectively be sort of kicking the tires and figuring out how to work together and to solve shared problems and realize aspirations and mold this and develop it to something that can scale to its vision. It's a system ecosystem aligned around mobile network operators and telecom and their set of users, to create this alternative financial infrastructure. And so if you know anything about, banking systems or financial infrastructure, payment networks, and, it takes a long time to transition from the systems that are out there to new ones. ACH and all that stuff. They're for so long, right? And there hasn't been any updates to it. And so that's literally what we're trying to do is we're trying to create an alternative financial infrastructure for the world together. And so it takes time. You look at the long term, but I think we're moving forward in the right direction, and really appreciate you guys taking the time to meet with me and share your nominations with the community. And I hope that it was something that, a lot of people learned from. But if there's more questions, tag me at Telcoin Tau. I'll make sure that there are responses to there and that we can share them with everyone from that account. So that's that Tau account is, at scale, like the Tau is not meant to be like the central source of information for the association, but right now it needs to be. But once the councils are elected, that kind of becomes theirs, and that's why it's not like the Telcoin Association Twitter, because the Telcoin Association is still being self-organized. And once the election happens, then the community can determine, hey, here's the Telcoin Association Twitter, here's this and that and the other thing. So
last question, Parker, before we cut you loose, is how difficult was it from the executive leadership to say we're going to relinquish control, basically for the councils to control, the Tau and all that stuff and I know you broke it off to a separate entity, right? And smartly done. But from a corporate level, it's like we're going to chunk this off and let the community drive this. If I was building out Tel for the last 5+ years, and like, are we doing the right thing? Like, we're going to let these knuckleheads control our fate in some aspects, right? So
I think there's certainly been internal alignment around the whole plan, and it's something that took certainly years to develop, and was a product of both looking at the vision for what the Telcoin system was founded on, the ecosystem was founded on, why it was created, and then looking at the existing world of DAOs and crypto network governance generally to see how that's been going and what lessons we can apply there. And then basically going in and saying, okay, well, these crypto networks aren't exactly like that much that within the realm of economic goods and services, they have a place, and that's similar to a variety of other goods and services. And so basically said, well, the existing crypto network governance systems are pretty bad. No offense to everyone, but and so we were like, all right, how can we make a better one? And so we, instead of trying to lean on creating things from scratch when there's thousands of years of governance across the world, experiments and theories and frameworks to use, we decided to incorporate theories and frameworks from the physical world of governance and apply them to this use case so that it could be something that sustains the test of time and solves the real challenges that goods like the Telcoin platform and Tel face within a structure that retains the decentralized nature of an ethos of crypto networks and the community aspect where it would be really to scale a blockchain system globally as a company is a really, in my view, it's just you can't really, that's not what these are. Community systems, and so community ownership models are what makes sense for them rather than having a company there. So I think this enables us to scale. Certainly before everything was proposed, it was passed internally consensus, and there was a ton of contestation and improvements, and the final product made sure to put that through the ringer a ton before we shipped it live. But yeah, it's certainly really fulfilling to get it out to the world, and satisfying to see everybody approve the proposal, and then now it's on to one step at a time.
Right on. Yeah, let's wrap up. I know we've kept you probably longer than expected. Again, these things tend to go long. Yeah, so I think the last one we were at 3 hours, but educationally, I mean, these are priceless. Parker, we're so glad to have you on, and for the community that's watched live and then watch it, it's going to watch afterwards. Out of whatever we've talked about today, if there's any questions, like Parker said, you can reach out to him specifically, or to the Tau Twitter profile, or Andrew and I. We can answer any questions we can from a lower level. But yeah, we really appreciate your time. And hopefully we can host the next educational content you want to get, if you want to take it down a level to a specific minor group or whatever and break that down. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we just we do. I mean, we've done zoomed out, right? We've done zoomed out by twice now. And I think have a platform series and an actor series, and
I think that's a great idea.
Series, all those things. Just
love it.
So yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate everyone joining. Really appreciate you guys and your support for this vision and mission that we've set out to accomplish together, and looking forward to the next one. So thank you so much, and I will stand by for any recommendations to the community about how we can educate, inform about this whole new paradigm, and I'll work towards trying to drive understanding and just really appreciate you guys. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Parker. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap up. Until next time, you know where to find us. We'll be we'll be around. So
thanks
again, Parker.
Take care, everyone.